Under the glow of 1,000 Christmas lights, Nashville had never looked more beautiful or felt more empty. The city sparkled like a jewelry box, each storefront window dressed in red and gold, each lamppost wrapped in garland that swayed gently in the December wind. Carols drifted from open doorways where families gathered, their laughter spilling onto sidewalks dusted with fresh snow. But for Marcus Holloway, standing alone on Fifth Avenue with his hands buried deep in the pockets of his wool coat, the lights might as well have been funeral candles. 3 years, 3 Christmases since the accident, 3 winters of walking these same streets, passing these same shops. Remembering, Marcus stopped in front of Bradley's Toy Emporium, drawn by a force he couldn't name. The window display hadn't changed much in 3 years. Same mechanical Santa, same toy trains circling endlessly on their tracks, same stuffed animals arranged in a winter wonderland scene. But there on a small mannequin positioned beside a tower of board games hung a red coat. Child-sized, wool blend with brass buttons and a fur-trimmed hood. His breath caught in his throat. Sophie had owned a coat exactly like that. He'd bought it for her here, in this very store 4 Christmases ago. She'd been 6 then, gap-toothed and full of boundless energy, tugging on his hand as they'd walked through these aisles. She'd spotted that red coat and her whole face had lit up like someone had plugged her into the holiday lights themselves. "Daddy," she'd said, pressing her nose against the glass case where it had been displayed, "that coat is perfect. Can Santa bring it?" Marcus had been on his phone that day. Some crisis at the hotel, some problem that had seemed so urgent then, and now he couldn't even remember what it was. He'd glanced at the coat, distracted, and told her maybe. Maybe if she was good. Maybe if there was time. The memory twisted in his chest like a knife. He'd bought her the coat eventually. She'd worn it exactly twice before the accident. It had been in the back seat of the car when the semi-truck ran the red light at the intersection of Broadway and 12th. The coat had survived. Claire and Sophie had not. Marcus turned away from the window, blinking hard against the sting behind his eyes. The cold bit at his face as he started walking again. No destination in mind, just movement. Just the need to keep going because standing still meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, and remembering was a kind of dying all its own. He found himself on Rose's Street, a narrow lane that ran behind the bistro district. The smell of garlic and wine hung in the air, mixing with the sharper scent of snow and exhaust. Most people took the main roads on Christmas Eve, heading home to families and feasts in the warm glow of tradition. But Marcus had learned to take the back ways. The alleys. The forgotten spaces where he could move through the city like a ghost. That's when he heard it. At first he thought he'd imagined it. A small sound, half swallowed by the wind. The cry of a child, thin and breaking, coming from somewhere in the darkness ahead. Marcus stopped walking. His heart began to pound in a way it hadn't in 3 years. Not since the hospital. Not since the doctor had pulled him aside and told him there was nothing more they could do. The sound came again. Definitely a child, definitely crying. Marcus moved toward it without thinking, his body responding to an instinct older than grief. He turned into the alley that ran behind Rose's Bistro, a narrow space lined with dumpsters and fire escapes lit only by a single flickering bulb above a service door. There, huddled against the brick wall beside a pile of collapsed cardboard boxes, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. Her hair hung in tangled dark strands around a face streaked with dirt and tears. She wore a thin sweater, threadbare and stained, over a pair of jeans that looked 2 sizes too big, held up by a piece of rope tied around her waist. Her shoes didn't match. One was a sneaker, the other what looked like a boy's loafer, both so worn that Marcus could see her socks through holes in the soles. In her arms, she clutched a stuffed bear. The toy had seen better days. It was missing one ear, its fur matted and gray with age, one button eye hanging by a thread. But the girl held it like it was the most precious thing in the world, her small fingers buried in its worn fabric. She was shaking, not just from the cold, though the temperature had dropped below freezing. This was the trembling of pure terror. Marcus took a step closer, and the movement must have caught her attention because her head snapped up. Her eyes, wide and glassy with fear, locked onto his face. She pressed herself harder against the wall, as if she could disappear into the bricks. "Don't hurt me," she whispered. Please don't hurt me. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Before he could respond, before he could tell her he meant no harm, a new voice shattered the quiet of the alley. Where the hell did you go? A man stumbled into view from the far end of the alley, moving with the loose-limbed uncertainty of someone deep in their cups. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a stained jacket over a wrinkled shirt. His face was flushed red, whether from cold or alcohol Marcus couldn't tell. Probably both. He carried a whiskey bottle in one hand, half empty, and when he spotted the girl, his expression twisted into something ugly. There you are, the man slurred. You little brat. You made me lose. $500. You jinxed me. The girl tried to make herself smaller, curling into a ball around her bear. The drunk man lurched toward her, raising his free hand. I told you to stay quiet. I told you not to move. But you couldn't do that. Could you? You never listen, just like your mother. Useless. Marcus moved without conscious decision. One moment he was standing at the alley's entrance. The next he was between the girl and the man, his body a wall, his hand raised in a stopping gesture that was polite but firm. That's enough, Marcus said. His voice came out low, controlled, the tone he used in boardrooms when he needed people to understand he was not making a request. The drunk man blinked at him, swaying slightly. His eyes took a moment to focus. Who the hell are you? Someone who's not going to stand here and watch you hurt a child. The man's laugh was bitter and sharp. Hurt her? This is my kid. I can discipline my own kid. Marcus glanced down at the girl. She had wedged herself into the corner where the wall met the dumpster, her whole body rigid with fear. There were bruises on her arms, visible even in the dim light. Old ones, yellowish-green, and newer ones, still purple and fresh. Her lip was split, scabbed over but recent. Discipline, Marcus repeated. The word tasted like poison. The drunk man took a step forward, bringing with him the overwhelming smell of whiskey and sweat. His face was close enough now that Marcus could see the broken blood vessels in his nose, the yellowing whites of his eyes. You got a problem with how I raise my kid, rich boy? Marcus held his ground. I have a problem with abuse. For a moment, the two men stared at each other. Marcus could feel his pulse in his throat, his muscles coiled and ready. He hadn't been in a physical fight since college, but he'd grown up in Pittsburgh's South Side and some instincts never really left you. Then, to Marcus's surprise, the drunk man laughed again. This time it was a broken sound, devoid of humor. He stumbled backward a step, nearly dropping the bottle. You want her? The man said. His voice had gone strange, almost hysterical. You want to take her? Go ahead. Take her. He gestured wildly at the girl, whiskey sloshing from the bottle. See how long you last with that little leech, the man continued. See how long before she drives you crazy, too. She ate through my money, ate through my patience, ate through everything. Her mother died and left me with nothing but debts and this parasite. The man reached down and grabbed a small backpack that Marcus hadn't noticed before, lying in a puddle near the girl's feet. He threw it toward Marcus. It landed with a wet thud, the zipper partially open to reveal a few threadbare items of clothing, a box of crackers so old the packaging had gone soft with moisture. Merry Christmas, the drunk man spat. She's your problem now. And with that, he turned and stumbled away, disappearing around the corner. His footsteps echoed for a moment, then faded, then were gone entirely. Marcus stood in the sudden silence, his heart hammering. Snow had begun to fall again, soft flakes that caught in his hair and melted against his skin. Slowly he turned to look at the girl. She hadn't moved. She was still pressed against the wall, still clutching her bear, her eyes so wide they seemed to take up half her face. She was looking at Marcus like she expected him to be worse than the man who'd just left. Hey, Marcus said softly. He knelt down, putting himself at her level, careful to keep some distance between them. Are you okay? The girl didn't answer. Her breathing came quick and shallow. My name is Marcus, he continued. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise. Still nothing, just that terrified stare. Marcus looked at her more carefully now. In the better light afforded by his new position, he could see more details. The bruises on her arms matched others on her legs, visible through a tear in her jeans. There was a small burn mark on the back of her left hand, circular, about the size of a cigarette. Her fingernails were ragged and dirty, bitten down to the quick. But it was her face that made his breath stop in his chest. She looked like Sophie. Not exactly, not precisely, but there was something in the shape of her eyes, the curve of her cheek, the way her hair fell across her forehead. Something that reached into the deepest part of Marcus's grief and twisted. "Please don't hit me," the girl whispered. Her voice was so small he almost missed it. "I won't," Marcus said immediately. "I would never hit you." She searched his face, looking for the lie. Marcus held very still, letting her look, letting her decide. "Are you cold?" he asked. She nodded, just barely. Marcus slowly removed his coat. It was a good coat, Burberry, cashmere blend, the kind of thing that cost more than most people made in a week. He held it out toward her, moving carefully, like she was a wild animal that might bolt. "Here," he said, "take this." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, so slowly it was almost painful to watch, she reached out one small hand and took the edge of the coat. Marcus helped her wrap it around her shoulders. It was enormous on her, drowning her small frame, but it was warm. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. Another long pause. Then in that same whisper, "Harper." "Harper," Marcus repeated. "That's a beautiful name." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back, determined not to cry. "Harper, are you hungry?" She nodded again, more vigorously this time. Marcus stood up, keeping his movements slow and unthreatening. "There's a diner about 2 blocks from here," he said. "It's warm. They make good hot chocolate. Would you like to go there with me?" Harper looked at him, then at the mouth of the alley where the drunk man had disappeared, then back at Marcus. He could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. Which was more dangerous, the known threat or the unknown one? Finally, she nodded. Marcus picked up the wet backpack, slinging it over his shoulder. He didn't offer to take her hand, didn't try to pick her up, just started walking toward the street, slowly giving her the choice to follow. Behind him, he heard the soft shuffle of mismatched shoes on wet pavement. Harper was following. Maggie's Diner sat on the corner of Roses and 8th, a 24-hour establishment that had been serving coffee and comfort food to Nashville's night shift workers for 40 years. The windows glowed with warm yellow light, fogged with condensation. Through them, Marcus could see the sparse late-night crowd, a couple of nurses still in scrubs, a taxi driver reading a newspaper, an old man nursing a cup of coffee at the counter. The bell above the door chimed as Marcus pushed it open. Heat rushed out to meet them, along with the smell of coffee and frying bacon. Harper hesitated on the threshold, staring at the brightness, the warmth, like she'd forgotten such things existed. Marcus held the door open and waited. Slowly, Harper stepped inside. The woman behind the counter looked up as they entered. Her name tag read Maggie, and she had the weathered face of someone who'd seen a lot in her 50-some years but hadn't let it make her cruel. Her eyes moved from Marcus to Harper, and something in her expression shifted. Recognition, maybe, or concern. Marcus guided Harper to a booth in the back corner, away from the other patrons. She slid into the seat, still wrapped in his coat, still clutching her bear. Her feet didn't quite reach the floor. Maggie came over with 2 menus and a pot of coffee. She set the menus down, but her eyes stayed on Harper. After a moment, she leaned closer to Marcus. "That's the Bennett girl," she said quietly. "I've seen her before with that drunk man. Poor little thing." Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You know her?" Maggie shook her head. "Not personally, but they've been in here a few times over the past year. He's always drunk. She's always quiet. Too quiet if you ask me." She glanced at Harper again. "Is she okay?" Marcus didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he said, "Can we get 2 hot chocolates? And a grilled cheese sandwich?" Maggie nodded, understanding more than what was said. "Coming right up, hon." When she walked away, Marcus turned his attention back to Harper. The girl was staring at the table, her hands flat against the formica surface as if to prove to herself it was real. "Harper," Marcus said gently, "can you look at me?" She raised her eyes. Up close in the light, Marcus could see more damage. A bruise on her cheekbone, fading from purple to green. A small scar above her left eyebrow. The whites of her eyes were slightly bloodshot, the lids puffy from crying. "I need you to know something," Marcus said. "You're safe here. That man is not coming back tonight, and I'm not going to let anyone hurt you." Harper studied his face for a long moment. Then she said in that whisper that seemed to be her only volume, "Why?" The question caught Marcus off guard. Why what? Why are you helping me? It was such a simple question. Such a heartbreaking question. What kind of life had this child lived where kindness from a stranger seemed suspicious? Because you need help, Marcus said, and because it's the right thing to do. Harper considered this. Then slowly she reached into her sweater and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was worn at the creases, soft from being handled many times. She unfolded it with careful fingers and pushed it across the table toward Marcus. It was a letter written in careful feminine handwriting on pale blue stationery. Mama said to show this to someone kind if I was ever really scared, Harper said. Marcus picked up the letter, his hand suddenly unsteady. The paper smelled faintly of perfume, something floral and sweet. At the top, in curling script, it read, "To my sweet Harper Grace." Marcus began to read. "My sweet Harper Grace, if you're reading this, Mama is with the angels now. I'm so sorry I had to leave you, baby girl. I fought as hard as I could to stay, but the cancer was stronger than me. I need to tell you something important. I made a mistake marrying Kyle. I thought he loved us, that he would take care of you when I was gone. But I see now that he only loves money. He only stayed because of the trust fund your grandmother set up for you. In my nightstand drawer at home, there's a box with important papers. If Kyle ever hurts you, and I'm so afraid he will, find someone kind and show them this letter. Tell them to look in that box. You deserve to be loved, not used. You deserve to laugh and play and feel safe. You are not a burden. You are my greatest gift. Remember, you are my little Grace. You are strong. You are worthy. You are loved. I love you forever and always." Mama Marcus read the letter twice, his throat growing tighter with each word. When he looked up, Harper was watching him with those two old eyes. "Your mama loved you very much," Marcus said, his voice rough. "She died when I was 4, Harper said. The cancer took her away." "I'm sorry, Harper." The girl shrugged, a gesture that tried to be casual but came out broken. "It happens." Before Marcus could respond, Maggie returned with a tray. She set down 2 mugs of hot chocolate, topped with whipped cream and a dusting of cocoa powder, and a plate with a golden grilled cheese sandwich cut into triangles. She gave Harper a soft smile, then retreated without a word. Harper stared at the food like it might vanish if she blinked. "It's for you," Marcus said. "Go ahead." Harper reached for the mug with both hands, lifting it carefully to her lips. She took a small sip, then another, then a longer drink. The whipped cream left a white mustache on her upper lip. For the first time since Marcus had found her, something like pleasure crossed her face. "Is it good?" Marcus asked. Harper nodded, setting the mug down. Then she looked at the sandwich, then at Marcus, asking permission with her eyes. "It's yours," Marcus said. "Eat as much as you want." She picked up one triangle and bit into it, chewed slowly, swallowed, took another bite. Marcus watched her eat with a kind of fascinated horror. She ate like someone who wasn't sure when the next meal might come. Methodical, focused, nothing wasted. Halfway through the sandwich, she paused and looked at Marcus. "Is there poison in it?" The question hit Marcus like a slap. "What?" Harper's voice remained matter-of-fact, like she was asking about the weather. "Kyle said people sometimes put poison in food to make kids go away. Is there poison?" Marcus felt rage building in his chest, hot and sharp. "No, sweetheart. There's no poison. I promise you. This food is safe." Harper studied his face again, running whatever internal test she used to determine truth from lies. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she returned to eating. Marcus took a drink of his own hot chocolate, using the moment to collect himself. His mind was racing, trying to process everything he'd learned in the past hour. A little girl, abandoned in an alley on Christmas Eve. Evidence of abuse, both old and new. A letter from a dead mother warning about danger. And more than that, the way Harper looked in certain lights. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking. The way her hair fell across her forehead. The way she reminded him of Sophie. Marcus pulled out his phone, intending to call the police. His thumb hovered over the 9. Then he hesitated. The foster care system flashed through his mind. He'd read the stories, seen the news reports, children lost in the system, homes that were worse than the situations they'd been rescued from. A little girl from West Nashville who'd been placed in foster care 3 years ago after her mother's boyfriend had broken her arm. 6 months later, she was dead, killed by her foster father in a rage over spilled milk. The case had been in all the papers. Marcus had read about it while eating breakfast one morning, feeling that distant sadness you feel for tragedies that happen to strangers. He'd turned the page and moved on with his life. But Harper wasn't a stranger anymore. He looked at her, this small, damaged child, eating a grilled cheese sandwich like it was the finest meal she'd ever had. He thought about her mother's letter. Find someone kind. Marcus put his phone away. Harper, he said, where do you live? With Kyle, she said. In a house on Maple Street. Is there anyone else? Grandparents? Aunts or uncles? Harper shook her head. Mama's parents don't talk to us anymore. Kyle said they didn't want me. Marcus doubted that was the full truth, but he didn't press. Do you want to go back to that house tonight? Harper's hands tightened on her mug. Her voice came out very small. No. Then you're not going to, Marcus said. He was surprised by the certainty in his own voice, the decisiveness. He hadn't made a decision this clear, this sure in 3 years. Harper looked up at him, hope and fear warring in her expression. Where will I go? Marcus took a breath. You'll come home with me, just for tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do next. But tonight you'll be somewhere warm and safe. You promise? Harper whispered. I promise. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the promise settling between them. Outside, snow continued to fall, transforming the city into something clean and new. Inside the diner, the fluorescent lights hummed and the coffee maker hissed, and somewhere a radio played a tinny version of Silent Night. Harper finished her sandwich and drained her hot chocolate. Some color had returned to her cheeks. She wasn't shaking anymore. Marcus paid the bill, leaving Maggie a generous tip. As they headed for the door, Maggie caught his eye and nodded once, a gesture that said, I see what you're doing, and I approve. Outside, the cold hit them like a wall, but Marcus's coat kept Harper warm. His car was parked 3 blocks away, a black Mercedes that cost more than most people made in a year. Harper stared at it with wide eyes as Marcus unlocked the doors. This is your car? She asked. It is. It's really shiny. Marcus couldn't help but smile. It is pretty shiny. He helped her into the passenger seat, adjusting it so she could sit comfortably, and fastened her seatbelt. She clutched her bear in her lap, her fingers working nervously at the stuffed animal's remaining ear. What's your bear's name? Marcus asked as he started the engine. Snowflake, Harper said. Mama gave her to me before she got too sick. She said Snowflake would keep me safe. Snowflake is a good name. She lost her ear, Harper said sadly. Kyle pulled it off when he was mad. Marcus felt that rage building again, but he kept his voice gentle. We can fix that. I know someone who's very good at repairing stuffed animals. Really? Really. They drove through the quiet streets of Nashville, past houses lit with Christmas lights, past churches with nativity scenes on their lawns, past parks where snow was beginning to accumulate on playground equipment. Harper pressed her face to the window, watching everything with the intensity of someone who rarely got to leave the house. The Belmont Tower rose 30 stories above downtown Nashville, all glass and steel and modern luxury. Marcus pulled into the underground garage, parking in his reserved spot near the private elevator. Harper climbed out of the car slowly, staring up at the concrete ceiling, at the expensive cars surrounding them, at the pristine white lines painted on the ground. Do you live in a castle? She whispered. Marcus laughed, the sound surprising him. It had been a long time since he'd laughed. No, sweetheart, it's just an apartment. But the elevator was all mirrors and brass, and when they stepped inside and Marcus pressed the button for the penthouse, Harper's eyes went even wider. The doors opened directly into Marcus's home. The penthouse took up the entire 30th floor, 3,000 square feet of hardwood and marble and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the glittering city. The Christmas tree Marcus's housekeeper had insisted on setting up stood in the corner of the living room, 12 feet tall and decorated with white lights and silver ornaments. It was beautiful and cold and utterly impersonal. Harper stepped out of the elevator and froze. She turned in a slow circle, taking in the vaulted ceilings, the modern furniture, the abstract art on the walls. The view of Nashville spread out below them like a carpet of stars. "This isn't just an apartment," she breathed. "This is a palace." Marcus saw his home through her eyes and felt a sudden shame. All this space, all this luxury, and it had never felt emptier than it did right now. "It's too big for one person," he admitted. Harper walked slowly into the living room, her feet making no sound on the plush carpet. She stopped in front of the Christmas tree, tilting her head back to see the top. "Do you have a family?" The question was innocent, curious, but it landed like a punch. "I did," Marcus said quietly. "I had a wife named Claire and a daughter named Sophie. They died 3 years ago. A car accident." Harper turned to look at him, her young face suddenly ancient with understanding. "So you're alone for Christmas too?" "Yes," Marcus said, "I am." They stood there in the vastness of the penthouse, two people who'd been hollowed out by loss, surrounded by all the trappings of success and none of its comfort. "Are you hungry?" Marcus asked, needing to break the moment. "I could make something." Harper shook her head. "I'm still full from the sandwich." "How about a bath? Clean clothes?" Harper looked down at herself, at her dirty sweater and torn jeans, and nodded. Marcus led her down the hallway to the guest room. It had been Sophie's room, back when they'd lived in the penthouse as a family. After the accident, Marcus had cleared it out, unable to bear the sight of the pink walls and the stuffed animals and all the evidence of a life interrupted. Now it was neutral, decorated in beiges and whites, the bed made with hotel precision. He opened the closet and felt his heart clench. In the back, still on their hangers, were some of Sophie's old clothes, things he'd been unable to throw away. A sweater with a unicorn on it, a pair of jeans with butterflies embroidered on the pockets, a nightgown covered in stars. Marcus pulled out the nightgown. It would be too big for Harper, but it would work for tonight. "You can sleep in this," he said, handing it to her. Harper took it like it was made of glass. "It's so soft. The bathroom is through there," Marcus said, pointing. "I'll run you a bath. Take as long as you need." He turned on the taps in the guest bathroom, adjusting the temperature until it was warm but not too hot. He found a new bar of soap, a bottle of shampoo that smelled like lavender. When he came out, Harper was still standing in the middle of the bedroom, holding the nightgown. "I'll be right outside if you need anything," Marcus said. "Just call for me." He closed the door and stood in the hallway, listening. He heard the soft sound of the bathroom door closing, the rustle of clothes being removed, the splash of water as Harper climbed into the tub. Marcus went to the kitchen and put on a pot of coffee, even though it was past midnight. His hands were shaking slightly. The adrenaline of the evening was starting to wear off, replaced by the enormity of what he'd done. He'd taken a child home, a stranger's child, a child who'd been abandoned, yes, but who still legally belonged to someone else. Marcus pulled out his phone and stared at it. He should call someone. The police, Child Protective Services, someone official. But every time his finger hovered over the screen, he thought about Harper's face when she'd asked if there was poison in her food. He thought about her mother's letter. He thought about the foster care system and its failures and the little girl who died because the system had placed her with the wrong family. He thought about Sophie, about promises he'd made to himself in the hospital after the accident, standing over his daughter's body. Promises about being better, doing better, never letting anyone down again. Promises he'd broken by retreating into work and solitude, and the slow suicide of not caring about anything. Marcus put his phone away. Tomorrow, he told himself. He'd figure it out tomorrow. Tonight, Harper just needed to be safe. He was pouring himself coffee when he heard the scream. Marcus ran down the hallway, his heart in his throat. He threw open the guest room door and found Harper in the middle of the room, wrapped in a towel, her wet hair plastered to her head. She was trembling again, backing away from the bed. "Harper, what's wrong?" She pointed at the bed with a shaking hand. "I can't. I'm not allowed." "Not allowed to what?" "To sleep in a bed," she whispered. "Kyle says I don't deserve soft things. I sleep on the floor." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. He knelt down, getting on her level. "Harper, listen to me very carefully. You deserve every soft thing in this world. You deserve warm beds and clean clothes and hot chocolate and safety. Do you understand me?" Harper shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You don't know me. You don't know what I did." "What you did?" "Harper, you're 6 years old. What could you possibly have done?" "I made Mama sick," Harper sobbed. I made her so tired to taking a vitamin and that the cancer got her. Kyle said so. He said I killed her. Marcus had to fight to keep his voice steady. That's not true. Cancer doesn't work that way. Your mama got sick because of bad cells in her body. Not because of you. Never because of you. But Harper was beyond hearing him now, lost in whatever darkness Kyle had planted in her mind. She sank to the floor, curling into a ball, her whole body racked with sobs. Marcus sat down beside her, not touching, just present. He let her cry, let her empty herself of poison that had been building for 2 years. When her sobs finally quieted to hiccups, he spoke softly. Harper, can you look at me? She raised her head, her face blotchy and wet. I'm going to tell you something true, Marcus said. You are not bad. You did not hurt your mama. You are a good person who had bad things happen to her, and that's not your fault. How do you know? She whispered. Because I know what it's like to blame yourself for something you couldn't control, Marcus said. When my wife and daughter died, I blamed myself. I thought if I'd just been there, if I just made different choices, they'd still be alive. I carried that blame for 3 years. It nearly destroyed me. Did it get better? Marcus considered lying, giving her the comfort of false hope. But Harper deserved truth. Slowly, he said, very slowly, and it still hurts, but talking about it helps. Having people who understand helps. Harper wiped her nose on the towel. I don't have people. You have me now, Marcus said, if you want. She looked at him with those ancient eyes. Why would you want me? The question pierced him. Because 3 hours ago I was walking through this city wondering if I had any reason to keep going. And then I found you. And for the first time in 3 years, I had a purpose again. He paused. You don't have to sleep in the bed if you don't want to, but you're never sleeping on a floor in this house, understood? Harper nodded slowly. Marcus stood and pulled the blanket off the bed. He folded it in half and laid it on the carpet beside the nightstand. Then he took one of the pillows and placed it at the head of this makeshift bed. There, he said, a compromise. But not the bed. Will that work? Harper nodded again. She climbed onto the blanket and Marcus helped her get settled, pulling another blanket over her. She clutched Snowflake to her chest, her eyes already drooping with exhaustion. Marcus started to stand, but Harper's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Don't leave, she whispered. Please don't leave me alone in the dark. Marcus settled into the chair beside the bed. I'll stay right here, I promise. What if you fall asleep? Then I'll sleep in this chair. But I won't leave. Harper's grip on his wrist loosened slightly. Okay. Marcus sat in the chair as Harper's breathing gradually evened out. He thought she'd fallen asleep when she spoke again, her voice thick with drowsiness. Dad, Marcus? His heart stuttered. Yes. Thank you for finding me in the snow. You're welcome, sweetheart. Silence fell, broken only by the soft sound of Harper's breathing. Marcus watched her sleep, this small, broken bird of a child who'd somehow stumbled into his life. He thought about his penthouse, so perfect and empty. He thought about his company, so successful and meaningless. He thought about the 3 years he'd spent walking through his life like a ghost, going through the motions, never quite alive. And he thought about the promise he'd made to Harper in the diner, a promise to keep her safe. Marcus pulled out his phone one more time. This time he didn't hesitate. He found the number for Elena Martinez, a family lawyer who'd done work for Claire years ago. He sent a text. Elena, this is Marcus Holloway. I need your help with an urgent matter. A child's safety is at stake. Can you come to my penthouse tomorrow morning? I'll explain everything then. He hit send and put the phone away. Outside the window, snow continued to fall over Nashville. The city slept, peaceful and unaware. But in the penthouse on the 30th floor of Belmont Tower, Marcus Holloway sat in a chair beside a sleeping child and felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Morning came too quickly and not quickly enough. Marcus had dozed in the chair throughout the night, jerking awake every time Harper whimpered or shifted in her sleep. Each time he would lean forward and whisper that she was safe, that he was still there, and she would settle again without fully waking. By the time gray light began filtering through the curtains, his neck ached and his legs had gone numb, but he didn't move. He'd made a promise. Harper woke slowly, her eyes opening in confusion before memory caught up with her. She sat up quickly, clutching Snowflake, her gaze darting around the unfamiliar room until it landed on Marcus. "You stayed," she said, wonder in her voice. "I said I would." She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to understand a language she'd never learned. People don't usually do what they say. "I do," Marcus said quietly. "When I make a promise, I keep it." Something flickered across Harper's face, too complex for him to read. She stood up, the star-covered nightgown hanging to her ankles, and walked to the window. Outside, Nashville gleamed under a fresh blanket of snow. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "It's pretty," Harper said. "It is." Marcus stretched, feeling every one of his 48 years in his protesting joints. "Are you hungry?" Harper nodded, still gazing out at the city. They moved to the kitchen together, Harper padding behind Marcus like a small shadow. The penthouse kitchen was all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, designed for a chef Marcus had employed for exactly 3 months before the staff dinners became too painful a reminder of family meals he'd never have again. Now he mostly ordered takeout or ate at the hotel restaurant, but he remembered how to make pancakes. Sophie had loved pancakes. Marcus pulled out the mixing bowl and ingredients, measuring flour and eggs and milk with more concentration than the task required. Harper climbed onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island, watching his every move with those serious eyes. "Do you know how to make shapes?" she asked. "Shapes? With the pancakes, like animals or letters or stuff?" "I used to," Marcus said. "I made them for my daughter. Mickey Mouse was her favorite. Could you make me one?" The request was so small, so hesitant, like she expected to be told no. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I can try. It's been a while." He heated the griddle and poured the batter carefully, trying to remember the technique. 2 circles for ears, 1 larger circle for the head. The first attempt came out lopsided, the ears too big and merging with the head in a way that looked more like a mutant blob than a mouse. Harper giggled. "It looks funny." The sound of her laughter hit Marcus like a physical thing. It was bright and clear and utterly unexpected, a splash of color in a grayscale world. He found himself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in recent memory. "Okay," he said, "let me try again." The second attempt was better. Not perfect, but recognizably mouse-shaped. He slid it onto a plate and set it in front of Harper along with syrup and butter. She stared at it like it was a work of art. "It's too pretty to eat," she said. "It's meant to be eaten. That's what makes it special. Something beautiful that you get to enjoy." Harper picked up her fork, still hesitant, and cut a small piece. She chewed slowly, thoughtfully. Then her face lit up. "It's really good." They ate together in comfortable silence, the kind that felt less like absence of words and more like presence of understanding. Marcus made regular pancakes for himself, watching Harper work her way through the Mickey Mouse creation with careful precision, making sure to get some of each part in every bite. When they'd finished, Marcus cleared the plates and poured himself more coffee. He needed to make decisions, needed to figure out what came next. But the morning felt fragile somehow, like pushing too hard would shatter something important. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena Martinez. "Marcus, I can be there at 10. This is highly irregular, but your message concerned me. I'll clear my morning." Marcus checked the time. 8:30. He had 90 minutes. "Harper," he said gently, "I need to talk to you about something important." She went very still, fork frozen halfway to her mouth. The wariness was back in her eyes, the fear. "Am I in trouble?" "No, God, no. You're not in trouble, but we need to figure out what to do next. I can't just keep you here without telling anyone. That would be kidnapping." Harper's face crumpled. "So I have to go back." Marcus moved around the island quickly, kneeling beside her stool. "No, listen to me. You're not going back to Kyle. I promised you'd be safe, and I meant it. But there are legal ways to do this and illegal ways. I need to do it the legal way so that you can stay safe for good, not just for one night." Harper looked down at her lap. "What's the legal way?" "A lawyer is coming here this morning. Her name is Elena. She's going to help us figure out how to make sure Kyle can't hurt you anymore." "Will she take me away from you?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "She might want to put you somewhere temporarily while we sort everything out. There are people whose job it is to protect children, but I'm going to fight to keep you here if that's what you want." Harper's hand found his. Her fingers were so small, so cold. I want to stay here, with you. Then that's what we'll tell Elena. The doorbell rang at precisely 10 o'clock. Marcus had dressed in jeans and a sweater, wanting to look approachable rather than intimidating. Harper had changed into Sophie's old clothes, a pair of jeans that were slightly too long and a purple sweater with a kitten on it. She'd refused to let Snowflake out of her sight. Elena Martinez stood in the hallway looking exactly as Marcus remembered her. Mid-30s, sharp suit, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. She'd handled Claire's estate planning years ago, back when they'd still believed they had decades ahead of them. She carried a leather briefcase in an expression of professional concern. Marcus, she said, shaking his hand, it's been too long. Though I wish the circumstances were different. Thank you for coming on Christmas Day. Elena's gaze moved to Harper, who was half hidden behind Marcus's leg. And who is this? This is Harper, Marcus said. Harper, this is Miss Elena. She's here to help. Harper didn't speak, just pressed closer to Marcus. Elena's expression softened. Hello, Harper. I like your sweater. Harper touched the kitten design but said nothing. Why don't we sit down, Marcus suggested, leading them to the living room. Can I get you coffee? Please, Elena said, settling onto the sofa and pulling out a legal pad. Marcus made the coffee, hyper-aware of Harper following him into the kitchen, unwilling to be separated. When he returned with 2 mugs, Elena had her pen poised and her lawyer face firmly in place. Tell me everything, she said. So Marcus did. He told her about finding Harper in the alley on Christmas Eve, about Kyle, drunk and abusive, abandoning his stepdaughter in the snow, about the bruises and the burns and the casual cruelty. He showed her Anna's letter, which Harper had retrieved from her backpack. He explained about the trust fund, about the neglect, about the 2 years of systematic abuse. Elena listened without interrupting, her pen moving across the page in quick, efficient strokes. When Marcus finished, she set down her pen and looked at Harper. Harper, sweetheart, can you tell me about the box your mama mentioned in her letter? The one with important papers? Harper nodded. It's in Kyle's house, in Mama's old room, under the bed. Do you know what's in it? Harper shook her head. Mama just said it was important, that it would help keep me safe. Elena turned back to Marcus. We need that box. Whatever's in it could be crucial for building a custody case. I can't just break into his house, Marcus said. No, Elena agreed, but you can report the situation to Child Protective Services and request a welfare check. If there's evidence of abuse in the home, they can seize relevant documents. How long will that take? Days, maybe. A week at most. But in the meantime, Harper needs to be somewhere safe. The legal route would be to place her in emergency foster care while we sort this out. No, Harper said. It was the first word she'd spoken since Elena arrived, loud and sharp with panic. No foster care. Please. Elena's professional mask slipped slightly. Honey, I understand you're scared, but there are good foster families. People who care. That's what Kyle said about himself, Harper whispered. He said he would take care of me after Mama died. He lied. The room fell silent. Elena looked at Marcus, a question in her eyes. Marcus looked at Harper, at this small person who trusted him with her truth, and made a decision. What if she stayed here, he asked. Temporarily, while we work out the legal details. Elena frowned. Marcus, you're not a licensed foster parent. You have no legal relationship to this child. Any halfway competent lawyer could argue you kidnapped her. Then what do I need to do to make it legal? Elena was quiet for a long moment, clearly running through options in her head. There is one possibility, emergency guardianship. If we can demonstrate that Harper is in immediate danger and that you're willing to assume responsibility, a judge might grant temporary custody pending a full hearing. How soon can we make that happen? Elena checked her phone. Courts are closed for Christmas, but I have a contact, Judge Patricia Morrison. She's worked child welfare cases for 20 years. If I can convince her this is urgent, she might agree to an emergency hearing tomorrow. Do it, Marcus said, whatever it takes. Elena nodded, already typing on her phone. But Marcus, you need to understand what you're getting into. This isn't just letting a child stay with you for a few days. If you pursue guardianship, you're committing to a legal battle that could take months. Kyle is her legal guardian. Even if he's abusive, he has rights. You'll need to prove he's unfit, that you're a better option, And that won't be easy or cheap. I don't care about the money. It's not just money, it's time, energy, emotional investment. And there's no guarantee you'll win. Are you prepared for that? Marcus looked at Harper. She was watching him with an expression that was trying very hard to be brave and failing completely. He thought about Sophie, about the promise he'd made standing over her grave, about being better, doing better, never letting anyone down again. Yes, he said, I'm prepared. Elena studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, I'll make some calls. In the meantime, I need you to document everything, every bruise, every scar, everything Harper tells you about what happened to her. Take photos if she'll let you. Write down dates and times. The more evidence we have, the stronger our case. After Elena left, promising to call within a few hours, Marcus found himself alone with Harper again. The little girl had retreated to the window, staring out at the snow-covered city. Harper, Marcus said gently, joining her. Miss Elena needs me to ask you some hard questions. Is that okay? She nodded, still looking outside. Can you tell me about the times Kyle hurt you? Harper was quiet for so long, Marcus thought she wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she began to speak. The first time was maybe 6 months after Mama died. I spilled juice on his laptop. He was playing his betting games and I knocked over the cup. He got really mad. He grabbed my arm and squeezed really hard. It hurt for days. Marcus felt his hands curl into fists. He forced them to relax. What else? Lots of times he would push me. I fell down the stairs once. That's when my arm broke. He didn't take me to the hospital for 2 days. He said it was just a sprain. The burns on your hands? Harper looked down at her palms, at the small circular scars. Cigarettes, when I did things wrong. When I made noise when he was on the phone. When I asked for food when he said we didn't have money. How often did he lock you in the closet? Harper's voice got even smaller. A lot. Sometimes for hours. Once overnight. I counted to 1,004 times. I thought I was going to die in there. It was so dark. I couldn't breathe good. Marcus had to stop, had to turn away for a moment to collect himself. The rage burning in his chest was so intense it frightened him. He'd never considered himself a violent man, but right now he wanted nothing more than to find Kyle Brennan and make him feel every ounce of pain he'd inflicted on this child. Is that enough questions? Harper asked. Marcus turned back to her. Yes, sweetheart. That's enough. You were very brave to tell me. Are you mad at me? The question stunned him. Mad at you? Harper, no. I'm furious at Kyle, but not at you, never at you. Oh, Harper said, like this was a new concept. Harper, I need to take some pictures of the bruises and scars. It's important for the lawyer. Is that okay? Harper hesitated, then nodded. Marcus got his phone and documented everything. The yellow-green bruises on her arms, the circular burns on her hands, the scar on her knee, the split lip that was still healing. Each photo felt like an indictment, evidence of a system that had failed this child over and over again. When he was done, Harper asked, what happens now? Now we wait to hear from Elena. And while we wait, we're going to do something normal. What would you like to do? Harper thought about this. I don't know what normal is. The admission broke Marcus's heart. Well, he said, normal for 6-year-old might be playing games, or watching movies, or drawing. Do any of those sound good? Harper's eyes brightened slightly. Drawing? Marcus found paper and colored pencils in a drawer in his office. Harper settled at the kitchen table and began to draw with fierce concentration. Marcus made them lunch, simple sandwiches and apple slices, and watched her work. The first drawing showed a house, dark and imposing, with a tiny figure in one window. The second showed the same figure, but outside now in the snow. The third showed a tall man reaching down to the small figure, and even though it was done in a child's hand, Marcus could feel the emotion in those simple lines. That's us, Harper said, pointing to the third drawing. When you found me. Can I keep this? Marcus asked. Harper nodded. You saved me, like a hero in a story. I'm not a hero, Harper. I just did what anyone should do. But most people don't, Harper said with the wisdom of someone twice her age. Most people walk past me before. You stopped. Lena called at 3 in the afternoon. Marcus answered on the first ring. Good news and bad news, she said. Judge Morrison agreed to an emergency hearing tomorrow at 9 a.m. That's the good news. And the bad news? Kyle filed a missing person report this morning. There's a bolo out for Harper. Police are looking for her. Marcus felt ice in his veins. What does that mean? It means Kyle is playing this smart. He's positioning himself as the worried father whose child was kidnapped. When the police find Harper with you, and they will find her, you could be arrested. Then what do? We get ahead of it. I'm going to call Detective Sarah Chen. She handles child welfare cases. I'll explain the situation, show her Anna's letter, tell her about the evidence of abuse. With any luck, she'll understand, and we can sort this out before anyone gets arrested. And if she doesn't understand, then you'll need a criminal lawyer too, Elena said grimly. But let's try not to get there. 2 hours later, Detective Sarah Chen stood in Marcus's living room. She was in her early 40s, Asian American with tired eyes that had seen too much. She'd listened to Elena's explanation, read Anna's letter, looked at the photos on Marcus's phone. Now she was talking to Harper, her voice gentle in a way that spoke of long practice. Harper, sweetie, I need to know the truth. Did Mr. Holloway take you from your home? Harper shook her head. Kyle left me in an alley. He said I was too much trouble. Mr. Marcus found me in the snow. And you wanted to come here with him? Yes, ma'am. I was so cold and scared. He gave me his coat and bought me hot chocolate. He promised I'd be safe. Detective Chen made notes, her expression carefully neutral. Has Mr. Holloway hurt you in any way? No, Harper's voice was firm. He's nice. He makes pancakes with shapes. He doesn't yell. He stayed with me all night so I wouldn't be scared. The detective's eyes flicked to Marcus, assessing. Then she stood. Mr. Holloway, can I speak with you privately? They moved to the kitchen. Detective Chen crossed her arms, studying him. I've been a cop for 18 years. I've seen a lot of bad situations. A lot of good people trying to help in ways that make things worse. I'm not trying to make things worse, Marcus said. I'm trying to keep a child safe. By taking her home without calling authorities? By keeping her for a day and a half without reporting it? You know how this looks. I know exactly how it looks, Marcus said. I also know what happens to kids in the system. I know about the little girl from West Nashville who died in foster care 3 years ago. I know the system fails children every single day. So you thought you'd do better? I thought I'd do something. Harper's mother left a letter begging someone to help her daughter. I'm helping. Detective Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. I want to believe you, Mr. Holloway. The evidence of abuse is clear. Those burns, those old fractures, they tell a story. But I can't just ignore protocol because you have good intentions. What happens now? Now I file a report. I'll recommend that Harper be placed in protective custody pending investigation of the abuse allegations. Given the evidence, she won't go back to Kyle, but she probably won't stay here either. There's a hearing tomorrow morning, Marcus said. Emergency guardianship. Judge Morrison. Detective Chan raised her eyebrows. Elena works fast. That's good. The judge will make the final call. But Mr. Holloway, you need to understand that having money and good intentions doesn't automatically make you the best option for this child. I'm not asking to be the best option, Marcus said quietly. I'm asking to be better than a man who burns her with cigarettes and locks her in closets. That's a pretty low bar. Something shifted in the detective's expression. She nodded slowly. I'll include everything in my report. The abuse evidence, Harper's statement, your cooperation. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a danger to her. But the system has rules for a reason. I understand. Do you? Because I've seen cases like this before. Well-meaning people who take in damaged kids without understanding what they're signing up for. The trauma doesn't just go away because you give them a nice home. These kids need therapy, patience, specialized care. Are you ready for the nightmares? The behavioral issues? The long road of healing? Marcus thought about the chair he'd slept in the night before. About Harper's whispered question about poison in her food. About the way she flinched when he moved too quickly. No, he admitted, I'm probably not ready, but I'm willing to learn, and I think that counts for something. Detective Chen studied him for another long moment, then nodded. It does. I'll see you in court tomorrow, Mr. Holloway. Take care of that little girl tonight. After the detective left, Harper emerged from where she'd been hiding in the bedroom. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. "Am I going to the bad place?" she asked. Marcus knelt down to her level. "I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, Harper. I won't lie to you, but I promise I'm going to fight for you. Whatever the judge decides, I'm not going to stop trying to keep you safe. What if it's not enough? Then we'll figure out the next step." Together. That night, Marcus ordered pizza, and they ate on the floor in front of the TV, watching a Christmas movie Harper had never seen. She fell asleep before it ended, curled against Marcus's side with Snowflake clutched in her arms. He carried her to the guest room, and this time, without being asked, she climbed onto the bed instead of the floor. Progress, Marcus thought. Small but real. He was about to leave when Harper's hand shot out and grabbed his. "Don't go. I'll stay in the chair," Marcus promised. Just like last night. But Harper shook her head. She scooted over, making room. "Stay here, please." Marcus hesitated. Every parenting instinct from his years with Sophie told him this was a boundary he shouldn't cross. But Harper's eyes were so wide, so full of barely contained fear, and he remembered his own promise. He'd told her she wouldn't be alone. He lay down on top of the covers, keeping distance between them. Harper immediately moved closer, her small body seeking warmth and reassurance. She was asleep within minutes, her breathing evening out into the gentle rhythm of childhood slumber. Marcus stared at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow, about the hearing that would determine Harper's future, about the little girl sleeping beside him who'd somehow become the most important thing in his world in less than 48 hours. His phone buzzed quietly, a text from Elena. "I've prepared our case, documents ready, witnesses lined up. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we fight." Marcus typed back, "Thank you." Then he added, "What are our chances?" Elena's response came quickly. "Honestly, 50-50. Kyle has legal standing. We have moral imperative. It's going to come down to the judge's discretion." Marcus set his phone aside and looked at Harper. In sleep, the worry lines that creased her young face smoothed out. She looked peaceful, safe, like a child should look. 50-50 odds, Marcus thought. He'd built a business empire on worse. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep, knowing that tomorrow would change everything. One way or another, the life he'd been living for the past 3 years was over. The question was what would take its place. Harper stirred in her sleep, murmuring something too quiet to hear. Her hand found his and held on tight, even in dreams refusing to let go. Marcus held on too, and somewhere in the darkness before dawn, made himself a new promise. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever the judge decided, he wouldn't abandon this child. Even if she couldn't stay with him, he'd make sure she ended up somewhere safe, somewhere she could heal. It was the least he could do. It was everything he had to give. And as the first light of morning began to paint the sky outside in shades of rose and gold, Marcus Holloway prepared himself for the fight of his life. The courthouse loomed against the winter sky like a monument to judgment itself, all gray stone and tall windows that reflected nothing but clouds. Marcus held Harper's hand as they climbed the steps, Elena Martinez walking ahead with her briefcase and her armor of professional confidence. Harper wore the purple kitten sweater again, her hair brushed and pulled back with a clip Elena had brought that morning. She looked small and fragile and terrified. "You're going to do great," Marcus whispered as they reached the entrance. Harper's fingers tightened around his. "What if the judge doesn't like me?" "The judge's job isn't to like you or not like you. It's to keep you safe, and once she hears the truth, she'll understand." But Harper didn't look convinced. She clutched Snowflake against her chest with her free hand, the one-eared bear serving as both comfort and shield. Inside, the courthouse hummed with the controlled chaos of the legal system at work. People in suits hurried past, their shoes clicking on marble floors. Lawyers huddled with clients in corners, speaking in low, urgent voices. The whole building smelled like floor polish and old paper and something Marcus couldn't quite identify, but that tasted like anxiety. Elena led them to a small conference room on the 3rd floor. "Judge Patricia Morrison won't tolerate any nonsense," she explained as they settled into uncomfortable chairs. "She's fair but strict. She cares about children, which works in our favor, but she also cares about following the law. Our goal is to convince her that Harper faces immediate danger with Kyle and that you're a suitable temporary guardian while we pursue permanent custody." What if Kyle shows up? Marcus asked. He will show up. He filed the missing person report, remember? He's going to play the concerned father. We need to be ready for that. Harper had gone very still, her face pale. He's coming here? Marcus squeezed her hand. He can't hurt you here. There are guards, police, lots of people watching. You're safe. Harper nodded, but she'd started to shake, small tremors running through her body like aftershocks from an earthquake. The courtroom was smaller than Marcus had expected, more intimate. Wood paneling lined the walls and fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A few rows of benches for observers sat empty except for Detective Chen, who'd promised to testify if needed. The judge's bench dominated the front of the room, raised and imposing. They'd barely taken their seats when the door opened and Kyle Brennan walked in. Marcus barely recognized him. Gone was the drunk, stumbling man from the alley. This Kyle wore a suit, wrinkled but clean, and he'd shaved. His hair was combed back and his eyes, while bloodshot, were clear. He looked like a man who'd gotten his act together, a worried father searching for his missing child. But Marcus saw the calculation in those eyes, saw the way Kyle's gaze swept the room, taking in the players, assessing his odds. And when Kyle's eyes landed on Harper, Marcus saw something else. Not love, not relief, but possession. The look of a man who'd found something he'd lost and intended to reclaim. Harper made a small sound, barely more than a whimper, and pressed herself against Marcus's side. Kyle was accompanied by a public defender, a young man who looked overwhelmed and underprepared. They took their seats on the opposite side of the aisle, and Kyle leaned over to whisper something to his lawyer, never taking his eyes off Harper. All rise, the bailiff announced, the Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. The judge entered through a side door, a woman in her mid-60s with steel gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She carried herself with the authority of someone who'd spent decades making impossible decisions. She took her seat, surveyed the courtroom with sharp eyes, and picked up the file in front of her. Be seated, she said. Her voice was crisp, no nonsense. We're here for an emergency guardianship hearing regarding Harper Grace Bennett, age 6. Let's keep this focused and efficient. I've read the preliminary filings. Ms. Martinez, you're representing Mr. Holloway? Yes, Your Honor. And Mr. Webb, you're representing Mr. Brennan? The young public defender stood quickly. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Morrison looked at Harper, and her expression softened almost imperceptibly. Hello, Harper. My name is Judge Morrison. Do you understand why you're here today? Harper nodded, not trusting her voice. You can speak up, honey. No one here is going to hurt you. Yes, ma'am, Harper whispered. To see if I can stay with Mr. Marcus. That's right, and I'm going to listen to everyone very carefully so I can make the best decision for you, okay? Okay, the judge turned her attention back to the lawyers. Ms. Martinez, present your case. Elena stood, radiating controlled intensity. Your Honor, on Christmas Eve, Marcus Holloway found Harper Bennett abandoned in an alley behind Rose's Bistro. She was inadequately dressed for freezing temperatures, showed visible signs of injury, and was in acute distress. Mr. Brennan, who was intoxicated at the time, told Mr. Holloway to take the child and walked away. Mr. Holloway, concerned for Harper's immediate safety, brought her to his home and contacted my office the following morning, and failed to contact authorities for over 24 hours, Judge Morrison noted. Mr. Holloway made a difficult decision in an emergency situation. Harper was terrified, specifically of being placed in foster care. Given the hour and the holiday, Mr. Holloway chose to ensure her immediate safety and seek legal counsel as soon as possible. As you'll see from the evidence we're presenting, that decision likely saved Harper's life. Elena laid out the case methodically. Anna's letter, written in the weeks before her death. The medical evidence photographed by Marcus showing old fractures, burns, and extensive bruising. Detective Chen's report documenting her interview with Harper and her observations of the child's condition. Character statements from the diner owner who'd witnessed Kyle's intoxication and aggressive behavior. With each piece of evidence, Judge Morrison's expression grew more grave. She examined the photographs closely, her mouth pressing into a thin line. When Elena read portions of Anna's letter aloud, specifically the part where Anna expressed fear that Kyle were on behalf of law would hurt Harper, the judge removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. Mr. Webb, the judge said when Elena finished. Your response. The young lawyer stood, shuffling papers. Your Honor, my client acknowledges he struggled with alcohol abuse following the death of his wife. It's been a difficult time. However, he maintains that he loves Harper and has never intentionally harmed her. The injuries Ms. Martinez referenced can be explained by normal childhood accidents. Harper is an active child who falls frequently. Cigarette burns are not the result of falling, Judge Morrison said dryly. Mr. Brennan has been in Alcoholics Anonymous for 2 weeks now. He's getting help. He's taking steps to be a better guardian. He believes with support and supervision, he can provide a stable home for his stepdaughter. Ms. Martinez is asking the court to grant custody to a man who has no legal relationship to this child, no background in child care, and who by his own admission kept Harper for over 24 hours without notifying authorities. Mr. Holloway may mean well, but good intentions don't make him a suitable guardian. Judge Morrison looked at Kyle. Mr. Brennan, stand up, please. Kyle stood, trying to look humble and chastened. It almost worked. How long have you been sober? 14 days, Your Honor. And how long have you been attending AA meetings, folks? Kyle hesitated. I've been to 3 meetings. 3 meetings in 14 days? I'm committed to my recovery, Your Honor. I know I made mistakes. I was grieving my wife and I turned to alcohol to cope. But Harper needs her father. She needs stability and familiarity, not to be thrown into the home of a stranger. Mr. Brennan, Judge Morrison said, her voice sharp as a blade. You told Mr. Holloway, and I quote, "Take her, see how long you last with that little leech." Does that sound like the words of a loving father? Kyle's face flushed. I was drunk and angry. I didn't mean it. You also told him that Harper ate through your money. Can you explain what you meant by that? The trust fund Anna set up requires expenses for Harper's care, Kyle said carefully. Food, clothing, medical care. It's expensive raising a child on a limited income. How much is in Harper's trust fund, Mr. Brennan? Kyle shifted his weight. Approximately $180,000. And how much have you withdrawn? About $40,000 over the past 2 years. For Harper's care? Yes. Elena stood. Your Honor, may I? Judge Morrison nodded. Elena pulled out a document. These are bank records, subpoenaed yesterday. They show Mr. Brennan's withdrawals from Harper's trust fund. In the past 6 months alone, $15,000. The records also show corresponding deposits to online gambling sites totaling $14,000 in the same period. The courtroom went very quiet. Kyle's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Mr. Brennan, Judge Morrison said, ice in her voice, did you gamble away your stepdaughter's money? Kyle opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I made some poor choices. That's one way to describe embezzlement. Judge Morrison turned to Harper. Harper, honey, can you come up here for a moment? Harper's hand went rigid in Marcus's. Her eyes were huge, terrified. Marcus leaned down and whispered, just tell the truth. That's all she wants. The truth. Harper stood on trembling legs and walked to the witness stand. The bailiff helped her up onto the chair and adjusted the microphone. She looked impossibly small sitting there, snowflake in her lap. Harper, Judge Morrison said gently, I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay? Yes, ma'am. Do you know the difference between the truth and a lie? Yes, ma'am. The truth is what really happened. A lie is making up stuff that didn't happen. That's exactly right. And you promise to tell me the truth today? I promise. Good girl. Now, can you tell me about living with Kyle? Harper's voice was soft but steady. At first, it was okay. After Mama died, he was sad but nice, but then he started drinking the brown stuff that smells bad. And he got angry a lot. Did he ever hurt you? Harper nodded. He would push me, and sometimes he would burn me with his cigarettes when I did things wrong. What kind of things? Making noise when he was on the computer, asking for food when he said we didn't have money, spilling things, just being there sometimes. Tell me about the closet. Harper's breathing quickened. Judge Morrison noticed, and her expression softened even more. Take your time, honey. When I was really bad, Harper said, her voice barely audible now, he would lock me in the basement closet. It's really dark in there. I can't breathe good. Once he left me there all night. I counted to 1,004 times. I thought I was going to die. Several people in the courtroom, including Detective Chen, looked away. Kyle stared at the table in front of him. Did you tell anyone about this? Harper shook her head. Kyle said if I told, they'd send me to foster care, and it would be worse. He said kids disappear in foster care. Judge Morrison took a moment, visibly collecting herself. Harper, do you want to live with Kyle? No, ma'am. Why not? Because he scares me. Because he hurts me. Because he doesn't love me. He just wants mama's money. How do you know that? I heard him talking on the phone. He said once I turn 18, he gets everything, and then he won't have to deal with me anymore. Judge Morrison looked at Kyle with open disgust. Mr. Brennan, do you have anything to say? Kyle's lawyer put a hand on his arm, but Kyle shook it off. He stood up, and when he spoke, his voice had lost all pretense of humility. You don't understand. I tried with her. I really tried, but she's difficult. She doesn't listen. She's always underfoot, always needing something. Anna left me with nothing but debts and this kid. What was I supposed to do? Be a decent human being, Judge Morrison said coldly. Sit down, Mr. Brennan. But Kyle wasn't done. His face had gone red, veins standing out on his forehead. That rich bastard thinks he can just swoop in and play hero. He doesn't know what it's like to have nothing, to watch everything fall apart. Harper was supposed to be my security, my future. That money was supposed to help me get back on my feet. There it was. The truth finally laid bare. Get him out of my courtroom, Judge Morrison said to the bailiff. Now, Kyle realized what he'd done, panic flooding his face. Your Honor, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant that, wait, you can't just decide without hearing everything. Two bailiffs moved toward him. Kyle tried to push past them, tried to get to Harper. I'm her father. You can't take her from me, Harper screamed. Marcus was on his feet immediately, moving toward her, but Elena got there first, stepping between the child and Kyle. The bailiffs grabbed Kyle's arms and wrestled him toward the door. He fought them every step, shouting, She's mine. She belongs to me. You're stealing my meal ticket. The door closed behind him, cutting off his voice. The courtroom descended into shocked silence. Judge Morrison stood. We'll take a 15-minute recess. Harper, you did wonderfully, sweetheart. You can step down now. Marcus met Harper at the witness stand, and she threw herself into his arms, sobbing. He carried her out of the courtroom to a small waiting room, Elena following close behind. That just won our case, Elena said quietly. He confessed to financial exploitation in open court. Is Harper okay? That's all I care about right now. She will be. Elena looked at the child crying against Marcus's shoulder. You're good with her. I'm learning. When they returned to the courtroom 15 minutes later, Harper had cried herself out. She sat between Marcus and Elena, holding both their hands. Judge Morrison resumed her seat and looked at them with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. I've made my decision, she said. But first, Mr. Holloway, I have some questions for you. Marcus stood. Yes, Your Honor. You run a hotel chain, correct? Yes. Holloway Grand Hotels. That requires significant time and travel, I imagine. It can, yes. How would you manage that while raising a traumatized 6-year-old child? Marcus had prepared for this question. I'd restructure my responsibilities, delegate more, work from home when possible. Harper's well-being would be my priority. You lost your wife and daughter 3 years ago. How do I know you're not trying to replace them with Harper? The question hit hard, but Marcus answered honestly. I'm not trying to replace anyone, Your Honor. Sophie and Claire were irreplaceable. But Harper has reminded me that I still have love to give, that I can still make a difference in someone's life. She's not a replacement. She's a second chance. For both of us. You understand the challenges ahead? The therapy Harper will need, the behavioral issues that come with trauma, the legal battles that will likely continue for months. I understand I don't know what I'm getting into, Marcus said. But I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Judge Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Harper. Harper, do you want to live with Mr. Holloway? Yes, ma'am. Harper's voice was small but certain. Why? Because he's nice. He doesn't yell. He makes me feel safe. He stayed with me in the dark. The judge nodded slowly. Then she picked up her gavel. I've reviewed the evidence presented here today. Medical reports showing a pattern of abuse spanning approximately 2 years. Financial records showing exploitation of a minor's trust fund. Testimony from the child herself detailing neglect and physical abuse. And most damningly, Mr. Brennan's own admission that he viewed this child as a financial asset rather than a human being in need of love and care. She paused, making eye contact with everyone in the room. It is the opinion of this court that Harper Bennett faces immediate and ongoing danger if returned to Kyle Brennan's custody. It is further the opinion of this court that Marcus Holloway, while unconventional, has demonstrated genuine concern for this child's welfare. Harper's hand tightened around Marcus's. Therefore, I am granting Marcus Holloway temporary emergency guardianship of Harper Grace Bennett, effective immediately. This guardianship will remain in place pending a full custody hearing, which I am scheduling for 6 weeks from today. At that time, we will determine permanent custody arrangements. She turned to Kyle's lawyer. Mr. Webb, inform your client that his parental rights are suspended pending criminal investigation into child abuse and financial exploitation. He is to have no contact with Harper whatsoever. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder. Marcus felt Harper's arms around his waist, felt her tears soaking through his shirt. Elena was smiling, gathering papers. Detective Chen gave him a thumbs up from the gallery. Mr. Holloway, Judge Morrison said, her voice softer now, take care of that little girl. I will, Your Honor. I promise. As they left the courthouse, snow had begun to fall again, soft and gentle. Harper held Marcus's hand and looked up at the sky, watching the flakes drift down. It's snowing, she said. Like the night you found me. Like the night we found each other. Marcus corrected. They walked to the car together, Elena promising to file all the necessary paperwork and start building their case for permanent custody. The fight wasn't over. Kyle would likely appeal. There would be more hearings, more lawyers, more uncertainty. But for now, Harper was safe. For now, she was his. That night, back at the penthouse, they celebrated with pizza and hot chocolate. Harper was quieter than usual, processing everything that had happened. As bedtime approached, she asked Marcus to read her a story. He chose one of Sophie's old favorites, a book about a lost puppy who found a home. Harper listened intently, her eyes growing heavy. When he finished, she looked up at him. Dad, Marcus? Yes, sweetheart? Can I ask you something? Of course. When the judge said 6 weeks, does that mean I have to leave after 6 weeks? Marcus chose his words carefully. It means in 6 weeks there will be another hearing, and at that hearing, the judge will decide if you can stay with me permanently. What if she says no? Then I'll appeal, and if that doesn't work, I'll find another way. Harper, I made you a promise. I'm going to keep you safe. Whatever it takes. Harper was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I think Mama sent you to me like she sent an angel to watch over me after she couldn't anymore. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I think maybe she did. He tucked her into bed, no longer on the floor, but properly under the covers. She was learning to accept comfort, learning to believe she deserved soft things. Snowflake lay beside her on the pillow. Good night, sweetheart, Marcus said. Good night, Dad. Marcus, he was almost to the door when she called out again. Dad, Marcus? Can I call you just Dad? Not Dad, Marcus. Just Dad. Marcus turned back, tears in his eyes. He'd wondered if this moment would ever come, if he'd ever hear that word again, if he even deserved to hear it. I'd like that very much, he said. Okay then, Harper said, smiling for the first time all day. Good night, Dad. Good night, Harper. Marcus stood in the hallway for a long time after closing her door, processing the weight and wonder of that single syllable. Dad. Such a small word, such an enormous responsibility. He walked to his study and pulled out his laptop. There was work to do, papers to sign, emails to answer. His business had been neglected for 3 days now. But instead of opening his work files, he found himself searching for information on childhood trauma, on therapy options for abuse survivors, on what he could do to help Harper heal. Hours passed. Marcus read article after article, taking notes, bookmarking resources. When he finally looked up, it was past midnight. The city sparkled below him, peaceful in sleep. His phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building the permanent custody case. It's going to be a long fight. Marcus typed back, I'm ready. Then he added, thank you for believing in us. Elena's response came quickly. That little girl is lucky to have you. Marcus looked toward the hallway where Harper slept. He thought about the past 3 days, about how completely his life had changed, about the empty penthouse that suddenly felt like a home. No, he texted back, I'm the lucky one. Marcus looked toward the hallway where Harper slept. He thought about the past 3 days, about how completely his life had changed, about the empty penthouse that suddenly felt like a home. He closed his laptop and stood, stretching muscles tight from hours of research. The city below sparkled with late-night traffic, a river of light flowing through darkened streets. Marcus walked to Harper's door and eased it open. She'd kicked off her blankets in sleep, one leg dangling over the edge of the bed, snowflake clutched against her chest. He stepped inside quietly and tucked the covers back around her small form. Harper stirred slightly. Dad? She murmured, eyes still closed. I'm here, sweetheart. Go back to sleep. A small smile crossed her face. She settled deeper into the pillow, already sliding back into dreams. Marcus brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, then returned to his own room. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The permanent custody battle, therapy, learning to be a father again to a child who'd known too much pain. But tonight Harper was safe. Tonight she was home. And that was everything. Epilogue. 6 months later. Spring had transformed Nashville into a canvas of green and gold. The penthouse that had once felt like a mausoleum now hummed with life. Harper's drawings covered the refrigerator. Her backpack sat by the elevator. Her laughter echoed through rooms that had been silent for too long. The permanent custody hearing had taken place 4 weeks earlier. Kyle's parental rights were terminated. He was serving 18 months for child endangerment and embezzlement with mandatory rehabilitation. Elena had mentioned he was attending therapy in prison, actually trying this time. Marcus didn't know if that was redemption or just survival. He didn't need to know. What mattered was the adoption papers on his desk, signed by Judge Morrison just yesterday. Harper Grace Holloway. Official, legal, forever. Harper was at her first soccer practice, a program Dr. Kim had recommended for building confidence and social skills. Through the window, Marcus could see her on the field below, running with other kids her age, her ponytail bouncing. She scored a goal and turned immediately to the sidelines, searching for him. Marcus waved. Her face split into that gap-toothed grin that still made his heart clench. The doorbell rang. Marcus answered to find an older woman, elegant in a cream cardigan, silver hair pulled back, eyes the same shade as Harper's. Mr. Holloway, I'm Vivian Hart, Harper's grandmother. Marcus had found her 3 months ago, tracked her down through Anna's old records. She'd been searching for Harper too, hiring private investigators, checking every lead. When Elena had called her, Vivian had wept on the phone for 20 minutes. Mrs. Hart, please come in. Harper will be home in an hour. They sat in the living room where Harper now kept her books and puzzles. Vivian's hands trembled as she looked at the photos Marcus had framed. Harper and Marcus at the zoo. Harper's first day of school. Harper blowing out 7 candles on her birthday cake last month. Thank you, Vivian said quietly, for finding her, for saving her. She saved me too, Marcus said. When Harper burst through the door an hour later, grass-stained and breathless with excitement about her goal, she stopped short at seeing the stranger in her living room. Harper, Marcus said gently, there's someone I want you to meet, someone your mama loved very much. Vivian stood, tears streaming down her face. Hello, sweetheart. I'm your grandma, Vivian. Your mama was my daughter. Harper looked at Marcus. He nodded. It's okay, Harper. She's family. And Harper, who'd learned slowly to trust again, who'd learned that love could be real and people could keep promises, walked forward into her grandmother's arms. Marcus watched them hold each other. 3 generations of Hart women connected across time and loss. Sophie's picture sat on the mantel beside Anna's photo that Vivian had brought. 2 angels watching over the family they'd helped create. That night, after Vivian had left with promises to return for Sunday dinner, Harper climbed into Marcus's lap on the couch. Dad? Yeah, sweetheart? I think I have enough people now. Marcus kissed the top of her head. What do you mean? People who love me. You, Grandma Viv, Miss Elena, Dr. Kim, my friends from school. She paused. And Mama and Sophie from heaven. That's a lot of people. It's perfect, Harper said. Then quieter. I used to think I was alone. Now I'm not. No, Marcus agreed. Now you're not. Outside, the last light of day painted the sky in shades of rose and gold. Inside, in the penthouse that had finally become a home, a father held his daughter and felt, for the first time in years, complete. The end.